Why do you always have to say the book of Matthew was not written by Matthew? Then you turn up to say the book is not from God. Then sometimes they want to generalize it, that the book was invented. Recently I had a comment from my comment section whilst I was on TikTok live, and somebody came out with this argument. He said, the book of Matthew was not written by Matthew. It was invented. It was written by somebody else. Sometimes they are confused. But then he came out with this Matthew chapter 9 verse 9. That if you read it, you will find out that the book of Matthew was not written by Matthew. This is false. Listen, you have not really studied. And if you have done in-depth studies, you wouldn't speak like that. Now, I want us to read it first before we interpret. Okay? And we go to historical backgrounds. Not even from the Bible, but in the ancient time, how scholars were penning down certain things based on their grammatical use of some words. Matthew chapter 9 verse 9. I'm using the NKJV. It reads, as Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax office. And he said to him, follow me. So he arose and followed him. So the guy tends to say that. Now, instead of saying, as Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man, it should be like, he saw me. Because if it was Matthew who wrote it, he should say, he saw me. Man. You see? That is why I always come out with these terms that people argue ignorantly. You argue without having knowledge about what you are arguing. Now, in the ancient times, the Jews and the Greeks, scholars within that time, and among those tribes and people around the whole world, they were using the third person in referring to themselves while they write about their own books. Now, let's put the Bible aside. There is this man called Julius Caesar. Some people mention it Julius Caesar, the way you pronounce it. And Julius is Julius, and Caesar or Kaiser is Caesar. Now, listen very carefully, please. This Julius Caesar was a political leader. He was an army commander. In fact, he was part of those people who gave rise to the Roman Empire. He was a very strong man, a scholar. He was an author. He was a writer. No, go and read much about this man. And he lived around 100 BCE to the 44 BCE. And Julius Caesar wrote a book. He was an author. And as he wrote his books, he was not a Christian. Listen very carefully. He was an author. He was a great person within the Roman Empire. And as he wrote his own books, he also applied the principles of the third person in referring to himself. Because within the ancient time, that was what they were using. Now, hold on. Watch on the screen. He wrote a book which is named Gallic of Wars. Gallic of Wars. And this Gallic of Wars was written around 58 to 50 BCE. And this book describes battles, politics, and the people's Kaiser or Caesar encountered. Now, instead of saying Caesar or Kaiser, the way you pronounce it, consistently use his own named Kaiser or Caesar or titles like general. Now, in his book, book 1, in one of his books, that is book 1, listen to what Caesar wrote about himself. Caesar wrote, Caesar, having learned of their plans, hastened to Italy. And that is Caesar Sitio Fatus. Listen, I want to repeat it. Caesar, having learned of their plans, hastened to Italy. Not only this, he also did refer to himself by pronouncing his name as if somebody else was writing. Meanwhile, he was the one writing. Caesar ordered the legions. Caesar decided it was best. Caesar led the army. So if you read about the Gallic of Wars that was written by Julius Caesar, you may think that this man didn't write the book. Meanwhile, it was him who wrote the book. The point is this. Before Common Era, within the ancient times, they were using the third person. Authors were using person to refer to themselves. Now, let's go back to Matthew chapter 9 verse 9. Matthew, at that time when he was writing, they were using that principle. Listen very carefully. And up to now, there are some people who do use some principles because they want to write something that when people are reading, they will enjoy it. And in fact, they will focus on whom the attention is being focused on or what the attention is being focused on. Matthew was written about Jesus. He was not writing about himself. So his narration has to focus on Jesus. So number one, Matthew has to humble himself and then elevate Jesus, put him on the limelight so that people will focus on him instead of him, Matthew. Listen very carefully. So even Matthew referred to himself as a tax collector at that time, humbling himself. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they humbled themselves as they were writing about Jesus. Okay? So Matthew chapter 9, verse 9, within the time when it was written, listen very carefully, within the before common era, after common era, AD and so, until we live in the providential age. If you don't know it, you have to know when you are, what time you are living. Okay? And before you die, and another time will come and things will be keeping on to change. But the Bible remains the same. Whatever is being written, the principles are being applied. Listen very carefully. Because we are dealing with human beings. We are dealing with human beings. And it doesn't destroy the credibility of the author. So, if you don't take time, you will blame the Bible. Indirectly, you are blaming every book on earth. Meanwhile, you are reading from other books. Let me tell you, please, the book of Matthew, the book of Mark, the book of John, everything came out from God. Humble yourself, study well, and you never come out that the Bible is not from God. Thank you very much. My name is Peter Paul, and don't hesitate to give me your thought in the comment section. I'll be right back next time.